Okay, so let's start standing. So just set the feet hip width apart, facing forward, and then just look down and check that the feet look level relative to each other. And I want you just to start by trying to pull all 10 toes up and let them come back down. So just a few times pulling them up, letting them come down, and then just take a look at which ones don't like to come up. Or when they come up, whether you can see that your feet like to roll one way or the other. So maybe you can kind of see that you roll towards the outside edge of the foot or the inside edge of the foot. So one more. All right, now let your feet roll towards the outside edges of the feet as much as is comfortable for you, and then let them roll towards the inside edge. So a few times rolling out one way, rolling out the other way. And again, just noticing whether you have a range of motion that feels easier one side than it does the other. I've got a dog desperately trying to get through the door, but it's blocked now, so it's too late. Not here for class start time, you don't get to do it at all. All right, last one. And then let that release. Take your left leg, step it back just into a comfortable stride forward. And then find again your rib cage and your pelvis. And you want to try and situate those two big bony structures right on top of each other. As you bend your right knee, I want you to think of your pelvis trying to travel forward to sit over the center of your right foot. The left heel absolutely can leave earth and then drift back. But this moment of trying to kind of feel in your body at what point the pelvis just physically cannot move itself any further forward is what you're really trying to tune into. So that way you're meeting the restriction on the front of the hip of the back leg, and then on the front leg you're meeting the restriction of the bum and the hamstring, whatever tension they have. Now as you continue with that, can you just angle the knee a little inward as if you're going more towards the inside edge of the big toe and drift it back? And so what we're doing here is trying to get the arch of the foot to flatten down and then to spring back. And that's why it's really important that the weight of the pelvis travels forward to create that downward pressure into the center bones of the foot and then allow them to spring back rather than just trying to push the ribs forward. Now, the next time you've traveled the pelvis forward over that front foot, you should feel like the back leg is pretty light. So is there any way that you can just get that back leg to lift and lower? And it really doesn't need to be big at all. I just want that front foot to have to take your body weight right now. See if you can lift the back leg without needing to bend the knee. Yeah, see if you can reach out into the heel so that you get your bum and your hamstring on that back leg to do the lifting. One more time. Great, and then bring all the way back. So change, bring the left leg forward, set your rib cage right on top of your pelvis, and then bend that front knee, carry the pelvis forward, and then see if you can feel the moment for you when it stops. So when the pelvis comes forward like this, there's always going to be a trailing side. So if your left leg is forward, the right side of the pelvis will be rotated towards that back leg, and the left side will also be rotating to the right. So you might feel one side of the pelvis further forward, which is fine, we're not bothered about that. Now see if you can let the bent knee angle itself a little inward toward the big toe, so we can begin to encourage this flattening of the foot and then the arching of the foot. And then the next time you've traveled forward, you're going to stay there and see if you can anchor into the front foot to let the back leg lift and lower. And it really doesn't need to be big, because that's when you'll start to bend the knee. And although there's nothing really wrong with that, right now I want you to really load the front of the front leg and the back of the back. back leg. One more time. and then step back into it and bring both feet back together. Okay, so grab your block, your book, your half dome, whatever you're standing on. And if you're using the half dome, have the flat side down and the dome side up. So bring one foot up on top of the block and bring the other foot alongside it. Now I want you to look at the knee of the foot that's on the block and notice whether that knee likes to naturally go inward. Not so common, but you do see knees that go outward. And see if you can get it to point straight ahead. Now, as you step up onto the block, I want you to watch the knee and notice whether it straightens straight back, or when you're standing on one leg, whether you can see the knee has kind of rotated itself inward and then step down. So as you step up, for some of us, it's going to require a thought process of trying to keep that thigh bone and knee slightly turned out as you extend the leg to make sure that the knee joint straightens up, pointing straight ahead instead of falling inward. So depending which side of your foot you favor, some of you will have an easy time with this, that the knee will naturally straighten centrally, and some of you are going to have to feel how much work you have to put in to keeping that thigh bone slightly pulled out and around. Last one. And then change to the other side. And you guys know, never assume two legs are the same. It's not often I'll teach people with both knees turning in. It does happen, but it's more common to have one turning in and one turning out. So when you start, you want the knee pointing forward. And then as you straighten, you watch it to make sure it doesn't fall inward. And whether that leg can sufficiently balance against you bringing the other leg up. So I can feel my left leg, there's just way more control on this side than there is on the right side. Yours might be different, or they might be beautifully balanced. All right, one more time. And then come back to the first leg up onto the block. So I want you to be mindful of how you get up onto one leg and cover it off the way we just did. So you're going to come up until you have one leg hanging in the air. Now the hanging in the air leg, I want you just to swing forward and back. And this is kind of always a tricky thing, unless your screen in front of you is showing you a good picture of you. If it is, take a look at the swinging leg and notice if it really tracks a straight line, or when you take the leg behind you, does it rotate out slightly? See whether the sole of that foot would really be able to paint me a straight line on the floor. All right, one more time. And then change to the other side. So when you step up, trying to get that feeling that the knee is really central, and then that hanging leg swinging forward and back, and just noticing whether you have this tendency to kick out. So you can kind of see it a little bit more on my right leg, how it likes to swing outward as it goes back. Okay, so if I don't think about it, it will go a little bit more out to the side rather than straight ahead. And so if you can watch yourself in your screen, it's always interesting because you don't kind of feel it, it just feels like it's tracking right. Cool. All right, now come back to the first leg. And then this time, step up again, paying attention to what it takes to keep that knee really centered. Then bring your hands onto your pelvis, and on the hanging leg, pull the top of the foot up towards you. So we've got a flexed foot. Lower that leg toward the floor without letting it touch all the way down. So that hand should feel how that side of the pelvis is dropping. Now bring the dropping side up by pushing down into your balancing leg, as if you could push that foot through the block and to the floor. And the leg that's coming up, can you bring that side of the pelvis a little bit higher than the standing side? So let the hanging side drop down, and you should feel how the standing side feels like it's come higher. And now reverse that, push down through the standing side and pull the hanging side up. So we're going to do that for as long as your leg can handle it. As soon as you want to change sides, just go ahead and do it. So that we can actually give the abdominal wall a fair old stretch here. It's worked pretty hard this week with all that arm work. All right, so I'm going to change legs now. I can feel my standing legs have enough of that. And if you've already changed legs, just feel free to keep going from side to side. Okay, there's really, you know, this is a quick half hour, make it work for you. So the hanging side drops down toward the floor and then pull it up. And see if your hands can follow the motion of the pelvis. And it's really the pulling the leg up from the wall, the floor, that requires a fair amount of work, because you've really got to push down into that standing leg rather than do what most people will want to do of just lean over and pull the leg up. All right, one more time. And let it release. Okay, so come back to your first leg or whichever leg you need to do now. All right, so building on this, you want to square the knee up first. As you come up, you're going to try to straighten the knee so it stays central. And then from here, you're going to bend the knee of the hanging leg. Then the leg that's on the block, you get to do a little knee bend here. But you're going to try and get that knee to track forward and to straighten. Doesn't need to be anything big or substantial. If you're working flat on the floor, then you might be able to get a little bit further down. But if you're on the block or the half dome where it's soft, there's going to be a lot of work here, especially if you're watching that that knee goes forward and comes back. All right, last two. Give your standing bum cheek something to do. Good. All right, and change to the other side. Okay, so watch the knee. Make sure it's pointing forward. And if you've already felt that to pull the knee to the center, you've had to tighten up your bum cheek, you need to keep your focus back there. When you straighten the leg, don't let those bum muscles switch off. All right, then bend the knee of the hanging leg, and then a bend on the standing leg, and an up. And just like before, if your knee starts to speak to you, just get off and go back to the other side. Maybe the movement is smaller. So on my left leg, which always feels more stable, I feel like I can go way deeper and push back up. But that right side that's not so steady requires not to go so deep, but to really pay attention to how I'm getting up and down. And if you can feel that you have a, in inverted commas, better leg, see if you can tune in to what you're using. So that kind of goes back to the conversation we were having at the beginning of the class. So I can feel on this better leg, I recruit a lot more of my bum to get me back up. Okay, come back to the first leg. So on my not so good leg, I'm going to try and take the feeling of that work and put it onto this. If this is your stronger, more stable, whatever leg, tune into it. So when we go back to the other leg, you can think what blueprint you need to put on that one. Okay, so we're just going to go again. Bend of the knee, it can be as small as you need it to be. So I can partly feel that one of the reasons I don't use my butt so much on the right side is that I like to poke that right hip out. That is years of carrying children on my right hip. But if I think about it and keep it back in line with my ankle, I can feel how I can get deeper into those muscles. So they're the things that are always just kind of worth feeling, tuning into. No. And it sort of explains why the knee goes in, because the hip goes out. So I've got to try and balance that and center this bone. All right, last one, unless you've already changed. and then hop over to the other side. Okay, so when you're all ready, go again. So keep the hanging knee a little bit bent. Remember, it doesn't need to be big. So on the standing foot, Jan, that leg likes to toe out slightly, and as you go to bend, actually you just need to do it one more time for me. Okay, bend. Yeah, you really have to watch that foot, because ever so subtly it toes itself out, and you're really trying to use the baby toe side of your foot to go up and down, which might have been your strategy for avoiding the knee pain, but make it smaller and see if you can push back to a straight leg through that big toe mound, not the toe, but the joint. All right, and then let all of that release for a moment. Okay, don't get rid of your block, we're coming back to it in a minute. So just stand the feet a hip width apart, bend the knees and sit back, and you can rest on the front of your thighs as much as you want to here, just to let the back of your legs stretch a moment, and then just let the hips swing a little bit from side to side. Kind of seems weird to use a squat to stretch out, but we can put those long back of the leg muscles on full stretch and then just give them a little bit of twist and turn. All right, and then come back up to center. And remember, anytime, so if your knees are feeling loaded, maybe you don't stand on a soft surface, maybe you stand on the floor and do it so you don't fatigue them too much. Okay, so put a foot up, whatever you're doing, or on the floor. Pull the other leg up. Okay, now put a bend in the hanging knee like we did before. Now start to take that hanging leg behind you and come back. So some of you might remember the days of the jewelry box where you would open the lid and the little ballerina would go round. So I want you to, sorry Laurie, that's not very applicable to you, but I want you to think of that. You've got that rotation to take the leg behind you and to come home, because it's going to make you have to go into one side of your foot and your ankle and then rotate back. And if this is a side of your foot and ankle that you don't feel very stable on, it's going to be an interesting conundrum how you can twist on it. One more time. Oh, all right, and then change to the other side. So stepping up, put a little bend in the hanging leg, and then start to rotate off that standing ankle and come on back. And if you feel like-minded to be a ballerina, feel free to do something pretty with your arms. It's enough just trying to balance on the block right now. All right, one more time. And let it release. Okay, set the block off to one side and stand down onto two solid feet. And then just go into a half squat. So find your hip hinge, let your knees bend, sit back. Today, I'll let you rest on your thigh bones. Don't tell anybody else in any other classes. And see if you can tuck and untuck the pelvis in this position. If you look back a moment to stretch out. And then swing the pelvis from side to side. And then watch how that changes the motion of your feet as you swing the hips. One more time. Okay, now from here, take your fingertips either to the floor or toward the floor. So it depends how tight your hamstrings are or how much you can bend your knees. Okay, now attempt to let one knee bend more and one knee straighten. and then change. And if it's too much to keep the hands on the floor, grab your block, so you've got some arm extenders, and do it that way. All right, one more each way. And then from here, can you come on down onto the mat for me? And come to a kneeling position. So you've got the knees hip width apart. And then when you look back at your shin bones, they're pointing straight back behind you. Okay, so from here, I want you to lean to one side and just see how it lets you pick up the opposite knee and come on back. Lean to the other side, see how it lets you pick up the knee and come on back. So do that a couple of times. Let yourself go over, come back. You can keep the foot on the floor if you want to go and take the hand all the way over. You don't have to lift this back foot. It's entirely up to you. But I do want you just to see if you can let the knee come off. Good. Another quick workout for your waist. Can it pull you back up from the floor? Okay, so that side to side motion, you're really using the weight of your torso to just pull you over and then trying to use your abdominals to come back up. Now I want you to think about trying to stay straighter or more vertical. So can you shift the weight over one leg? But if you put your gaze out on the horizon, it's going to help you to stay vertical. And now see if you can pick up the unweighted knee the way we did standing on the block. Can you think of pulling that side of your pelvis up and then bringing it down? And it's not that I need you to balance there for half an hour, but I do want you to see if instead of having to lean to get the leg up, can you go deeper into your abdominal wall of pulling the leg up, but keeping the pelvis level? All right, shift the weight to the other side and then go ahead here. Great. All right, so I see a little bit on the screens of this happening to try and help to find the balance. So just make sure you bring your pelvis over your knee and then you're going to try to keep it there as you pick the knee up. So we all know one side is not as good as the other, and I'm not sure it ever should be, but it's just looking at the strategies you employ, especially movements like this, because they all come back to how you walk through life. All right. Then from here, take one knee and step it forward, or one foot and step it forward. You can try stepping forward with your knee. So what is really important here is to make sure that you haven't stepped this leg forward so that it's almost on this tightrope. You really want to make sure that if you could draw lines from the two legs, we'd still have a hip width apart. Okay, so then from here, I want you to take your tailbone and tuck it down and under. So go really into sad dog mode. Now you might already have a pull coming through the front of that back thigh. Keeping tucked under, can you pull the pelvis forward any bit more? And it's probably not going to be a lot, but it should intensify into that. Now on the shin bone of the leg you're stretching, can you press all 5 toes into the floor so that that knee is as centrally placed as it can be and you're not favoring rolling it in or rolling it out? All right, and then step the front knee back in underneath you. Step the other leg forward. And then you're going to take the tailbone. Great, tuck it under. And once you've really tucked your butt under, pull the pelvis forward. Good, and then you should feel that stretch. Just deepen in. Great. From there, Jan, just bring your shoulders back a little bit. Now you've made your knee more comfortable. So there was a little bit of you leaning forward, which is going to put more pressure down into that tender knee. See if you can really bring your shoulders back over your pelvis. Okay, now from here, hinge forward and bring your fingertips to the floor. And on the back leg, tuck the toes under and pick up the back of the knee. Okay, once you've done that, if you cast your glance down and back and you look at the back foot, have you been able to get all 5 toes pointing straight ahead? And do you think you're really on the ball of your foot, or might you be more on the ends of your toes? So maybe the heel doesn't come as high as you think it should, so that we can really get into the toe knuckles and the toe joints. Okay, now from here, this would be the first place to hang out into. The second place would be to bring your hands to the front of your thigh. But if you're going to do that, I need you to make sure your knee does not go past your ankle. Great. And then you're going to see, can you fully straighten that back knee? Can you open it out for me a little bit more? And then can you take the hands and let them release? So, Sue Smith, can you drop lower into that? So that front leg is a little bit high on a diagonal. Yeah, just knowing that you bike, being able to drop down. Yeah, okay, pretty good. Now stay there and see if you can straighten the back knee for me. Good. So you see how it's pitching you forward. Bend the back knee a lot. And all of you can do this. Bend the back knee a lot and bring your upper body to a more vertical place. Bend the knee more and bring your shoulders back over your pelvis. Okay, now you're going to see where can you straighten that knee without you having to lean forward at all. When the teacher makes that noise, it's never a good thing. All right, let the back knee bend, fold forward and bring your hands to the floor. Bring the back knee down and take the other knee to join it. Okay, so if you pause for 2 seconds, while you've got a moment to watch the screen, let me just show you, because this is the difference between you walking away from this class with a back that's going to be grumpy, or you walking away with hips that are going to be really happy and a back that's going to feel better. So we all know what the exercise should look like because we've seen it a bazillion times. But when you get into this position, you want to see there's a 90-degree angle at the knee joint, okay? Not more this 45. Now, to come up to vertical from here takes a lot. So you see how my back knee, it's not straight, even though it kind of feels like it is. But a lot of you were pitched into this position and then trying to upright yourself from your lower back. I really don't want you to do that. So let's go again. Fold forward over the front leg and bring your fingertips to the floor. Or if that's too much, maybe you can grab a block and a half dome or a table or a couple of pillows. So extend the back leg out and notice if to do that, did you change something about the angle of the front knee? Can you get close to having that right angle there? Okay, now this is why we did it in steps. So it might be the first step is you just hover your hands off the floor and you do nothing else, you just stay here. Or you start to come up onto the front of the thigh. Now you can see how when you bring your hands on the front of the thigh, the body is pitched forward. So now bend your back knee and see if you can upright yourself and bring the hand closer to the thigh. Now, where can you straighten that back leg to without your body needing to pitch itself forward? Yes, so much better. And then you should find there's more intensity into the movement. All right, then from here, step the back leg to the front leg. If that's not possible, take your time to come back to 2 legs, and then you guys are done.